everybody. Hi, Haley and Kay, if I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Um, hi, everybody. I'm Jordan. I'm going to be the moderator for this evening, and I want to welcome you guys all to the Coalition for African Diaspora Student Athletes, or CADSA. So this is going to be the first BIPOC Mental Health Panel. So a little bit about myself is I'm actually from the DC metropolitan area. So I grew up in Northern Virginia. I was a student athlete at American University first, and then I transferred to play at William & Mary, where I played soccer at both. I graduated last year in August with a degree in government, and currently I'm doing this internship with the project management team, and I'm also have a full-time position in marketing as well. So what is CADSA? CADSA is the Coalition for African Diaspora Student Athletes, as I mentioned before, and our mission is to unite and support those who identify as such. With our collective voice, we advocate for social and academic upward mobility. By fostering connection to education and access to resources, CADSA ensures that Black student athletes are welcome, supported, and heard, while enhancing the overall student athlete experience through programming that promotes allyship and is inclusive of race, sexual orientation, gender, ability, and class. As we all know, mental health is paramount to your decision-making, stress levels, and can even affect your physical health. That is why this Mental Health Awareness Month, we are hosting this panel focusing on maintaining your mental health while in a competitive space. So for all our attendees, please feel free to ask your questions in the chat, as we will have a Q&A session towards the end. We hope you're as excited as we are tonight and looking forward to having a great discussion. So without further ado, let's introduce our panelists. And I'm also going to be sharing my screen with you guys, so give me 1 second. And okay. So our first panelist we have is Armando. Armando is a third-year student at the University of Iowa studying political science and African-American history. On the pre-law track, Armando competes on the track and field team as a mid-distance runner. He enjoys cooking restaurant-style meals as well as trying new recipes from around the world. Next, we have Shayla. Shayla is, we'd like to introduce you to Shayla, a Western Illinois University class of 2019 alumni. Shayla graduated with a degree in criminal justice as a pre-law major and played women's volleyball while at Western. She is currently based out of Dallas, Texas, and is the chief of staff for a financial agency, licensed life insurance professional as well. Next, we have Matthew Caruso. He attended Bryant University from 2017 to 2021, where he received his bachelor's of science in business administration as a finance and economics double major. Matthew was a wide receiver on the football team and the co-founder of a student organization titled Woke Athletes. Originally from Brockton, Massachusetts, Matthew is now currently living in Atlanta, working as an analyst at Deloitte Consulting in their finance to enterprise performance practice. So we're going to go ahead and get started with the panel. So now that we're kind of all acquainted with or at least with the attendees, let's start with a fun little icebreaker. So starting with Matt, what's one personal victory you accomplished within the last year?
Ooh, that's a good one. I don't think we got to prep with that question. But for myself, I would say moving out and living on my own for the first time. So I graduated college a year ago, so last May, and took a job living in Atlanta. And I've never lived kind of on my own. In college, they always had like all football players rooming together. And then my school was weird. We had to live on campus every year, even our senior year. So we had to live in dorms, on campus housing. So I always had roommates or people within a house for me. So moving to Atlanta by myself was the first time ever living independently on my own and pretty far away from home. So I guess that was a personal victory of mine, to be able to kind of move out of the state or move out of the region that I'm from and be independent.
That's definitely really, really cool. I'm kind of in a similar situation as well, but I'm going to go ahead and move to Armando.
Yeah, a recent big personal victory would probably be getting ready to go to grad school in like a special program where you do 3 years of undergrad and then 2 years of grad school, and yeah, I'm really excited to do that. So that's been a really big personal victory in the past couple months.
Yeah, that's great. That's fantastic. And Shayla?
I would say the same thing as Matthew. I just moved from Vegas to Dallas in the past 5 months, got my own apartment, essentially here by myself. All my family's still like on the West Coast. And it's like so funny. You go to college and you like think you're an adult, and then it's not, it's definitely not the same when you really have like those big bills and that scholarship money not coming aboard and things like that. So I think it's a big accomplishment to, move somewhere that you don't really know anyone and basically starting over with friends, career, all that good stuff. And then, yeah, just being on your own and being truly, independent. So.
Yeah, it kind of seems like everybody's in a similar situation, especially as young professionals. And I know Armando is still in college, but no, that's great. And I really think that's hitting our target audience for CADSA as well. So I'm going to go ahead and start getting into our actual questions. So our first question is, do you think that life outside of your competitive space affects how you perform? So that would be like your personal life, your career, anything, and whatever your competitive space may be as well. For Matthew.
Yeah, definitely. I think it plays a huge part into whatever your competitive space may be. So for myself, transitioning from athletics, being in that competitive space when it came to playing football, specifically in college, whether it was the course load, your social life, family and friends, whatever may be going on outside of your sport, definitely plays a huge part into kind of your overall kind of mental in the space that you're in when it comes to competing at such a high level. So I know when it comes to competing, no matter what the division is, but I know for myself, self specifically Division I athletics, it takes a lot. You're dedicated all the time to whatever sport that is. Being in there locked in, whether it's meetings, weight room, practice, film, what have you. So you really have to be in the right mental mind frame. And any sort of outside distractions that may pop in, or any sort of trouble that you may be dealing with, whether it might be struggling in a class or something, it's going to affect how you play. I know that happened for me a few times too, where if I had a big test, I'm out there running routes and I'm thinking about what's going to happen at my night class later on after practice, and I might drop the ball or do something stupid just because that's just where my head is at. And then, you have to be able to have good people around you to make sure that you're always present in the moment of whatever you're doing. And I think that's the best way I always used to approach it, is just try to be present in whatever I'm doing. And then whatever I have to focus on after, I'll deal with that after my current engagement.
Yeah, that's great. That's fantastic. I guess my takeaway from that would be more so separate what's important in your life. And I guess it's almost like having a work-life balance. Armando, do you want to answer that question as well?
Yeah, I want to continue to what Matthew was talking about, that idea of like compartmentalizing your athletics and your school, and I guess like your social life in like three different sectors, because once one thing's going wrong on the track and one thing's going wrong in your social life, it just becomes that much harder to focus on school. Because like we all know with athletes, your calendar is pretty much booked up from 8 o'clock in the morning to 5 o'clock at night, and then you just try to find time to eat and get your homework done and study for tests and stuff like that. So when one of those sides of the triangle is tilting to either side, it makes everything so much more difficult. And like Matthew said, having good people around you to continue to keep your head on straight is something that has been such a big benefit to me, and I know you guys can relate to that.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely balance is a huge thing as a student athlete, and then especially after college. And Shayla?
Yeah, so I completely agree with both of you guys. I also think that it can only happen like that if you let it, in a way. Like I feel like wherever your mind goes, that's where your energy is going to flow. That's where your body, your behaviors are naturally going to follow if you're not in the right mind space. And I had a coach very, very young. He would always tell us like, I understand that you may have other things going on, outside of this, but we're here to like get better. We're here to become better individuals, young women, teammates, and things like that. And that's something that's, always stuck with me. It's not like don't deal with my problems or anything like that, but learning that when I'm here, like I'm here for a purpose and we're here to accomplish a goal. And then he'll always just like, after practice, if we need to talk, we can talk. But here, that's what we're here for. And I think it's just developing like healthy habits to be able to handle your outside problems so that they don't translate in how you show up to play, to practice and perform and things like that. And just being able to like flip that switch. I feel like we all have like this alter ego, when it's game time, it's like we're a whole new person. And Kobe's a good example of that. Like he's Mamba, like, and as athletes, if you want to compete at the high level, you have to learn how to, do that as well. So that's just a mindset shift. And then, afterwards we can go ahead and deal with this. Cause I mean, it's just a life lesson as well, because as far as life, you're always going to be, going through things. So being able to separate the two.
Yeah, those are some great points. I know, especially the point that you made towards the end of how you approach yourself, and like self-talk is something that's really, really important as an athlete, but also in everything as well. But kind of going off of that question, the next question we're going to go ahead and ask is, do you think your time management has an effect on your mental health? So that may come in with the compartmentalization or however you may see it. So Matt.
Yeah, I think it does. I also think it's something that's a little bit more specific to the individual. So I know for myself, I think it's really good to have a little bit of structure when it comes to time management. Being an athlete, it's already, that's how it is in college. So it's like, all right, cool. My whole entire football schedule was planned out for me. And even now it translates to work too. So like I base off when I'm able to do like my action items and assignments for work or whatever tasks I have for the day off of what meetings that I have. So if I'm here from 8 to 4, I know I have meetings then. It's like, well, I either got to do my work before 8 or after 4. And it was the same thing kind of with football, just being able to find where my free time was and being able to manage that. So between classes, whatever outside obligations. So for myself, I was running a student organization. I was involved in other student organizations as well, on top of football too. It was just being able to parse out that free time and then be able to take advantage of that. And that definitely did play an impact on my mental health, because I know for me, I wanted to be able to be super organized. So I loved having the structure and understanding how much time I had, and then being able to approach it and deal with it like that, versus like, I used to hate when coaches used to be like, all right, cool. I remember one time we had like practice at like from 8 to 10 in the morning. And then one day they flipped it to like 8 to 10 at night, messed up my whole day. And I was like, oh, now you got me all messed up now. Everything's going wild. I was like, okay, this isn't it. So you always got to be adaptable, but I know for myself, having that time structure and time management is huge for helping me to be able to be focused more and have a better kind of overall mental health.
Yeah, you made some great points, Matt. That's something I definitely struggled with, especially during my first or second year of college as well, time management. I mean, I didn't really have the skills developed throughout high school, but we're going to go ahead and move to Armando.
Yeah, I think time management is definitely individual to individual basis. I think each individual has a different idea of what perfect time management looks like. I know for myself, it's working as hard as you can in the morning before practice, giving everything you got to practice. And then after that, kind of riding down, unwinding until you go to sleep. I try my best to, after practice, not have as much work or studying or to do. Probably like I view reading as something that is a lot more pleasurable than studying for an exam the next morning. So if I have some reading, I'd much rather do it before I go to sleep or before I cook dinner. I use dinner as like a kind of like an unwind session, listen to some music, cook something that you like. And yeah, after dinner, you go to sleep. So I think that time management has definitely allowed me to find those pockets of kind of happiness within my sport. Because we all know the times where you've come home from practice and it's been just an uphill battle, to put it bluntly. It's just been, you feel like, man, this is the hardest practice. You find a new level of difficulty. You find a new level of, I didn't know I could hurt that long for whatever the workout is. And you come home and you just got to unwind, and you got to remind yourself why you do this every single day. So
I think that's really important. Time management really helps with your mental stress as well. If you make a commitment beforehand, it's like a contract with yourself. I know it's something that I personally utilize. But yeah, I'm going to go ahead and move to Shayla.
Yes, I 100% agree that it can affect your mental health. And I think that the day in the life of a student athlete is like nothing you really are prepared for. And it's like, it can be very, very, overwhelming. Like your day can literally, especially when you're in your main season, like it's like sunrise to sunset, you have everything from like lifting, training, practice, competing, traveling, film, like Armando said, you got to remember to eat. Like there's just so many things that take part. And even though they set the schedule for you, it's still like, I want to have, time for yourself, somewhat of a social life. You're still in college, and things like that. So if there's no structure, no system in place, like I know for me, that was very overwhelming, because high school, you can get away with so much. So that transitions phase from high school to freshman, hopefully by sophomore, you have a little more like you get used to the schedule and things like that. But the first part can be very overwhelming if you don't, put those systems in place. And with you being overwhelmed, that can cause a lot of negative emotions as well, anxiety, stress, things like that. So learning how to, value your time, prioritize your time, then it can get, a lot easier from there.
Yeah, for sure. And going off of that, I do think that another way of saying what you're saying is like you need to set boundaries with yourself and what's okay and what's not. But yeah, so kind of going off of that again, we talked about prioritization. So how would you guys prioritize yourself in the midst of a competitive environment?
Yeah, I think that's really important. I think one thing kind of to note about that too is just like it's never something that you necessarily have all set in stone, and it's not like someone has the formula for it. I think it's something that you continuously kind of figure out as you kind of evolve and change, and your competitive environment may change too. Like you yourself are always growing, and you have different interests, so these may change as well. But I know for me, it's just being able to prioritize things that kind of allow me to like relax and things that I thoroughly enjoy outside of um, that competitive space and all the things that are pulling for my attention at the time. So I know for myself, it's like I enjoy listening to music, watching TV, reading occasionally. I think it's something now I like to do because I don't have class anymore. So like I don't have to read books and textbooks and stuff. But there's certain things that I thoroughly like to enjoy, like to do that are interesting to me. So and they're not something that's really like super thought provoking or something that really gets like your mind always going and constantly kind of get or anything that brings any stress, I would say. So for myself, I love to do that. Also too, I think being able to talk about it, right? So, utilizing the resources that you have at your school, seeking therapy, being able to talk about whatever you're going through. Because, these competitive environments, like it's not the easiest on your mental health or your physical health as well. So being able to talk to someone about it and not just kind of internalizing everything until you get to a boiling point, but being able to utilize those resources, talk to family, friends, people who are able to have a good ear to listen and not always necessarily have to talk back and give you a bunch of advice. Because I know sometimes it's not always what people want to hear. They're just going to be able to vent some things out. So being able to find those avenues and those channels to be able to express yourself and kind of relax, and then continue to kind of do that, and then get ready for the next day as you go back right back into those competitive spaces.
Yeah, that's great insight. I know for certain that a support system will directly affect your mental health and how you're going to approach things in the future. So that's definitely like some great insight. Some people may not think about it. Some communities actually will have trouble like asking for help. So I'm glad that you said that. But yeah, Armando.
Kind of continuing something you said as well as Matthew, talking about the support system that you have to have, the safety net you need to kind of fall back on when things are not looking well. I think when you get into like peak competition season, and where I'm at right now in my season, being able to just call my sister and be like, "Hey, this is what's going on," and she's like, "Yeah, that sucked," or being able to reach out to like sports psychology and be like, "Hey, like I'm having like a mental block. I can't get through this," and it might just be personal stuff in your life, but they offer a whole bunch of avenues for you to work through it and grow from it. I think something that's really helped me, two things that have helped me is relying on my family as a safety net, but also growing as a man um, within my sport through the use of like student like wellness and like being able to talk to someone that understands your struggle, talk to someone that looks like you, has similar life experiences in you, someone that is not just going to give you advice, but is going to just sit down and be like, it's okay to cry and it's okay to, like, have those big emotional outbursts when you feel like the world is kicking you down. So those are the two things that have really helped me grow in my sport.
Thank you for sharing that, Armando. I definitely have some shared experiences with that as well. I'm going to go ahead and move on to Shayla.
Yeah, so I think that this is like such an important thing to talk about. Just from like my personal experience, I got injured very early on in my college career. And I feel like a lot of us, especially if you've been playing sports from a really young age, like our identity is completely wrapped in being an athlete. Like that's all we know, right? And I think the truth of the matter is like not everyone's going to go to the league, not everyone's going to go pro. And I know for me, that wasn't ever my aspirations. This was a vehicle to get me to school, And I think that it's so important that you create an identity outside of just being an athlete and finding those things that make you happy, those things that you enjoy, like who am I outside of this sport? And I think that you have to, just like, our coach gives us the schedule, like within that schedule, making sure that you integrate and not even for, those of us that aren't in school anymore, it's like, I still need to integrate this into my life as far as putting myself as a priority and doing those things that make me happy, and also just with these hectic schedules that we may have, what can I do to like recharge myself, help me reset and, get back on track. And that looks different, for everyone. For me, it's more like manicures, pedicures, quality time with friends, listening to music. In my adult days, I've transitioned into like, I love massages now and stuff like that. But whatever that looks like for you, you just have to really figure out and prioritize that time, through our crazy schedules.
Yeah, thank you for sharing, Shayla. I definitely got to try massage at some point. I've never had one, but you may have just convinced me. But yeah, so our next question is, how do you deal with the pressure coming from your surroundings? So that might be your coach, your parents, your peers, teammates, acquaintances, career, whatever it may be. It could even be from yourself.
That's a really good one. I was kind of thinking about my answer for that one. I think there's like two ways that I would say I try to approach it. Is the main one is definitely like change your or alter your perspective of how you're viewing that pressure. So again, I think it's a very I would say it's kind of up to us, right? It's how you view whatever's being said to you and how you kind of internalize that and compartmentalize it, and then you will kind of allow it to affect you. So whatever your family's kind of saying to you, coaches or whatever, they're putting all this stuff on you. But if you change your perspective and how you view it, I think it also really allows you to kind of drive how that affects you. So whether it comes to a coach saying like, hey, we really need you to step up this game, or we really need you to come through for us during this meet or whatever, you feel like this added pressure that's put onto you, right? But if you change your perspective to seeing it instead of it being more of like, oh, this is a make or break thing, or this is an opportunity for me to do bad, but rather it's just like, oh, he believes in me. This is a really good time for me. I really want to go out and show out and do my best. I think it might change how you overall view that kind of comment that he made. And I think that's kind of the main thing too. And then finally, I would say for myself was just kind of like quieting all those voices, basically kind of telling everyone to like shut up, like just removing all that out of the way, because life's already stressful enough as it is, right? We deal with so many different things. Just being a student athlete, just on this one specific panel, we've mentioned how many different things go into the natural day of a student athlete. Just practice, meetings, lift, classes, multiple classes, tests, student organizations that you're a part of, having a social life, like going out and having fun, because we're still young adults and kids. So, you want to be able to do that too. So trying to find time in all that within 24 hours within a day seems nearly impossible. And then, you don't want just life to pass you by because you're so focused on certain things. And I know for myself, it was just kind of like anything that was adding me stress. I'm like, yeah, you got to be quiet. Like, I got to move you away. So if it's a coach, all right, coach, you only talk to me during practice, but I have to talk to you outside of that. I'm not talking to you because like, I don't need you to keep adding stress to me, or even family too. Sometimes I think it's kind of messed up. I hope my family doesn't hear me when I say this, but I know for myself, like living alone, the greatest thing is like you don't got to pick up the phone and talk to nobody unless you don't have to. It's like all up to you. So like, sometimes I'll see the call come in, and if I'm not in the space to deal with it, I don't pick up the phone. Like, sorry, I'll get back to you whenever I'm ready to talk to you. Because I know that maybe sometimes that might be a comment that I don't need to hear, or a conversation that, might put me in a different mental mind frame that I don't need to be in right now. So I think those are the two biggest things. It's just altering my perspective on how I view whatever pressure that is, and changing it to be more positive so it doesn't have a mental drag onto me. And then two, kind of telling people to shut up, or, quieting people sometimes, or quieting all that outside noise, and just allowing to really focus on myself and let me drive that.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you for sharing that. And I know definitely perspective was a big thing for me. Something that my brother actually helped me with was that, like, when I'm viewing something that's very hard, it's more of you change your mindset. Instead of you have to do it, you get to do it. So I know other people have probably heard that, and sorry if I'm stealing one of you guys' answers. But so I'll say I get to compete. Like, I get to, pursue my career. I get to do all this stuff because not everybody is put in these same positions as I would. But yeah, so next we have Armando.
Yeah, that's a hard question just because I feel like I haven't figured it all out myself. I'm still going through seasons and still figuring out a lot of things about my sport. I feel like I learn a new aspect of myself and my sport every single indoor and outdoor season. But the biggest thing that has really helped me is kind of a new revelation is kind of continue to question who I am, like who is Armando outside of track and field. I know Shayla was saying that you kind of become one dimensional when you've played the sport for so many years. Like, you think that is your only identity, and in reality it's not. Something that really helps me is like just kind of pivoting to another aspect of my life. Like, okay, like I can cook. I tell myself, oh, like, most people can't cook. Like, how many people in the NCAA can cook as good as you? And I know it's like kind of dumb, but it forces yourself to just take all pressure off of whatever you're going through, be it at a meet or just after practice when you feel like you had a bad practice. I know something that's been big is like in track and field in your event group, and I know you guys can relate to this. You always feel like you're in competition to make that, like, the travel team or the starting roster, or you're always at practice trying to be better than your friends and your teammates, because you know that somebody's not going to travel and you don't want to be that somebody. So when that pressure is put on, I just think to myself, okay, like, who am I outside of this? Like, how many students are political science majors? How many can do this? How many can do this? How many have a family like mine? You just try to take your mind off it. That's something that I do, take my mind off of it the best way that I can. And continuing what you said about saying, like, I can and like I'm able to be at this opportunity. I know that this year at the NCAA meet, first time going, I told myself, like, wow, this is the coolest opportunity I've ever been to in my entire life. They give you some really cool stuff, and it's an honor. It went from being, I'm so nervous that I'm gonna fail, to this is the coolest thing in the world. You watch it on TV every single year, and this is the first time that I could take a Snapchat picture on the track. So just kind of changing your mindset and your outlook to what's going on around you.
Yeah, thank you for that input. I definitely do think it's very important for your own self-development of you as an individual. And also it's really good to celebrate what your accomplishments have been and really look at what all the hard work that you've done. And that kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier with the self-talk. But anyways, we're gonna go ahead and move to Shayla.
Yeah, so I think Matthew and Armando really touched on it already, but I think the number one thing is changing your perspective on pressure, because pressure has this such a negative connotation on it, but it's actually like pressure is like such a good thing. And I think that, like you talked about, we receive it from so many places. And then on top of that, we may naturally even put the pressure on ourselves, whether that's consciously or subconsciously. And I think the biggest thing for me was figuring out why am I doing this? We've already kind of all hinted at it a little bit, like the student athlete life it's not for everybody. You definitely have to build a certain mindset, a certain mental toughness in order to be able to get through the long days and nights, the pressure, for me, like injuries, just the ups and downs of the whole thing. So if you know like why you're doing something, it's easier to stay on course. And kind of like Matthew said, you got to like you can take some things and then just push a little bit away in one ear and out the other, type of thing. It's not easy. Like you definitely have to learn how to get to that point. But also like if you figure out why you're doing it and you make it something bigger than yourself, that alleviates all the pressure off of you, right? So like you're doing this for your parents, you're doing this for your future self, whatever that is. It's like it just literally is like a relief off of your shoulders because it's bigger than you. So I think that, and then also just knowing that you've done everything to prepare to be in this moment, to be in this position. Most of us have played our sports for a while to be able to, get to this level, to be able to play at whatever D1, D2. That's a huge accomplishment in itself. And you wouldn't have gotten there. Like you didn't get there by accident is basically what I'm trying to say. You put in the work to be there, and knowing that I'm here to perform and be the best version of myself as an athlete. So.
Yeah, that's some great insight, Shayla. I also kind of want to add to that you have to remember to enjoy yourself while you're there, because you're there to, like, you probably started your sport to have fun. And I know that when you perform, your best is whenever you're happy or whenever you're in your natural state. So that's really important. But I'm going to go ahead and move to the next question. So that is going to be, in what ways do you reduce stressors that come along with being an athlete?
Yeah, I think that's a good one. I would say for myself, I think it kind of goes into my overall like identity and how I try to perceive myself. So, obviously being a student athlete, being more than just that athlete, being able to develop yourself holistically. So you don't just put all your emphasis and effort into this one piece of your identity that you think may define you when it truly doesn't. I know a lot of times we kind of allow our identity to be shaped by others. And other people usually shape your identity based off of what you commit your time to the most. So again, being a student athlete, everyone's gonna look at you and be like, "Hey, you're a student athlete." For me, it's like, "Hey, Matt's a football player. That's what he does." That's what I'm gonna kind of refer to him as. So I knew for myself, kind of coming to college, and something I wish I do in high school too, was just like define myself and be involved in other things to make sure that my identity wasn't something that they could just kind of silo into one piece. So again, when those stressors do come, you don't necessarily feel like it's so defining and attacking on you because you're more than just that one space that's causing you stress. So you're able to kind of step away from that and be able to kind of enjoy the other parts of your identity and whatever else interests you. So again, whether that's other involvements on campus, even now within like being in the corporate space and being in corporate America, like not allowing my job just to define me, because it's real easy when people would just say, "Oh, cool, Matt, you're an analyst, whatever." I was like, "Yeah, that's cool. That's how you might refer to me, but that's just not how I view myself." So I think that's one of the big things. So just being able to kind of realize and develop your identity outside of whatever's causing that stress. And again, just when those stressors do come to you, I think again the big thing was the perspective, right? Um, Being able to change your perspective on what exactly is causing you that stress, or whatever those things are kind of coming attacking you, and changing your perspective of how you view it, so it can be something more positive rather than negative. And then again, if that might not work for people, because again, sometimes it's really hard to see something as a stressor as not as anything different. I think one of the big things is just leaning on those things that you like to enjoy doing outside of that space, being able to kind of take your mind off of it, and be able to kind of recoup and be able to enjoy a little bit, because whatever you're supposed to be doing, like again, those sports, like we started them because they were fun. And I know it's a little tough when you're doing it all day and there's so many different things being thrown at you, but it's a sport. You're supposed to be out there to have fun. If you feel like you aren't having fun with it, then sometimes changing that environment and changing your outlook on what you're doing is huge, to be able to kind of again get back to enjoying what you love to do.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I completely agree. I think that the more well-rounded you begin, and you become, and the more you expand your horizons, the more like weight is going to be lifted off your shoulder. And if you're playing football, you're not going to have as much pressure on that. So that's fantastic, and I definitely resonate with that in soccer. But yeah, so Armando,
I think to answer this question on a more, I guess, more surface level, when you first asked it, I thought to myself, like, what are some things that I do to just simply just distress, and like, what are some things that I do to let go of the day or let go of what happened at practice? And like I mentioned in the past, like cooking has always been something that's helped me just kind of let go of reality and just kind of drift away. Um, it's it's been really beneficial. One, cooking things that you eat when you're back at home because you're not at home. You're in college. You're sometimes halfway across the country, and you're getting to kind of the best way that I can describe it is like in Ratatouille when he takes the the dish, the ratatouille dish, and he goes all the way back to like that flashback of his mom making it. That's what food kind of is like to me. It takes you back to moments that you're like, man, this is like pure happiness with you and your family, all around the dinner table, having the same meal, just laughing and having a good time. That's what cooking is to me. It's like the ultimate de-stressor. So that's what I do after I've had a hard practice or after I've had a long day at school. And we all know the feeling of waking up late, missing the bus, going to class, taking a test, feeling like you're burnt out, then going to practice, trying to put something together. Your coach is yelling at you. You're like, what am I doing here? Just to go home and do a whole bunch of homework and just feel like you just continue to question, like, what am I doing here? Why am I here? So cooking has allowed me to let go of parts of the day and be able to feel rejuvenated for the next day to conquer. So thank you.
Yeah, no, that's great. I'm glad that cooking is your thing. I think for me is like I would do the same sport but really casually. So like I would just kick a ball around and that would kind of remind me of like how I started and like it would give me the memories back to when I was like 9, 10, 11. So I think that's great. Shayla.
Okay, so I think for me, it would have to be like affirmations and like positive self-talk. And I think that it sounds kind of weird, but you have to, in a way, like trick your mind into thinking a certain way, like even if it's not true, like until it becomes like your reality. Everyone talks about like manifestation and stuff. Like, I think it's very, very important. So like, even if you're having a bad day, it's like, today is a great day. Like, I just failed this test, but it's a great day. Like, I've had a bad practice, but it's a great day. Like, just finding those moments to, still be grateful and finding those things to be grateful for. Even if you have to like dig really, really deep to be like, what can I even find that was great about today? But when you do find it, like stick to it and hold on to that so that it can outweigh, the negativity that you may have experienced throughout that day or even a certain season of your life that you're going through that you're struggling with. It's like, I have to stay on this positive mindset because if not, like, it's just going to make, the situation worse. And so yeah, I just think operating from a place of gratitude and just knowing that, we're all here for a reason and, God doesn't put us through any situations that we can't handle. And so I just think it's just staying in that positive mindset, no matter, what's going on around you.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. You need to have a positive mindset. I would just like to add to that like some people, and like I've had friends or acquaintances that it's almost like it's too much positivity where they don't acknowledge any any negativity that's going on. And I think it is also important to acknowledge it, but then you can take the positives from it as well.
Absolutely.
So those are going to be our main questions for this, but we're going to go ahead and move on to some of our additional questions. So the first one is going to be, how have you seen your peers or coworkers or anybody really been affected by their mental health in either their sport career or personal life, negatively or positively? If you guys can think of any.
I know just sadly, I know a lot has been posted around kind of on the news and different stories about, a lot of athletes taking their own lives. And you can probably result a lot of that to mental health and the stress and so many different things that are going on. And it's sad because they felt like that was what they had to do in order to, feel better in that moment. And sadly, that's what we never want people to do and feel like that is the result that they have to take. So being able to, again, be able to provide different resources, had different questions, and I mean, have different panels like this to be able to ask these questions to get certain answers and stuff like that. And I know from like a positive side, I know something at work, which is so different, but people hugely, they love taking their PTO and traveling and doing different things or whatever interests them. So like a lot of people I work with, they'll go backpacking all across Europe. They'll go to these different mountain ranges, go camping, they'll do traveling, take trips. So whatever that true enjoyment is where they can just de-stress. And I know for me, like one of the big things I did at my job, they give you the ability to either get a separate work phone, or you can combine it and have it so they'll like pay for your bill or whatever. And I know for me, I was like, yo, I would rather have a separate work phone because when I log off of work, you're not calling me, you're not texting me about nothing. You ain't gonna ask me to do no assignment, no work, none of that. So like on the weekends when I log off of work, I completely shut that down. So I know that was something that was huge, and I know a lot of people try to do that as well. It's just being able to, again, like when you're present in that moment, whatever it is, you focus on it. But when it's time to step away, you step away and just kind of cut it off completely.
Yeah, no, for sure. I definitely see that in my professional life as well with my coworkers. I mean, they love like, corporate retreats. They're no joke. Like I know people do that a lot of like KPMG and stuff. I don't know about Deloitte as much, but
Yeah.
I guess I'll answer the question kind of. I know that I had some teammates while I was at school, and they were probably some of the most talented people on the team, but for some reason they couldn't get over some sort of mental block between like practice and games. So they practice, they'd be the best player, they'd be cooking everybody, like, and then as soon as they get the games, they'll go in for 10 minutes and they'll be benched for the rest of the game because they can't perform the same. So it's really important and able to figure out a support system for yourself and how you're going to go ahead and approach these sports and these challenges. And it's going to carry over to after you're done with the sport as well. So if Shayla and Armando don't have an answer for this, I'm going to go ahead and move to the Q&A. So if anybody that's an attendee, if you guys could put any questions in the Q&A, we'll go ahead and ask them to our panelists, but we do have one for Armando, and that is, what is your favorite dish to cook?
I think something that has recently been something I really like cooking is Mexican food. Just taking a whole bunch of time to make really simple dishes, really, really, really good. And yeah, my teammates kind of know that I'm really good at cooking. So like yesterday, they all gave me like $10, and we bought a whole bunch of chicken and like beef and stuff, and I made them all a whole bunch of tacos, and it was like a really fun time. And I was like really proud of myself for taking on that challenge, but also it gave me an hour and a half to just vibe to music and cook some good chicken. So Mexican food definitely has been one of those things that I thoroughly enjoyed making.
Yeah, no, that's great. I definitely love Mexican food. But I'm actually curious as to like, does it get annoying? Like, do people come over all the time and expect you to cook food?
They most of the time ask, but yeah, it was a little frustrating freshman year. People be like, "Hey, can you
Yeah.
cook dinner?" I'm like, "No, I don't. Like, I just want to go to sleep. Like, I want to eat the leftover spaghetti I had." So,
Yeah.
but yeah,
Okay. Yeah. If there's no more questions in the Q&A, we're going to go ahead and close out this meeting. So thank you everybody for coming. Thank you, Matt, Armando, and Shayla for being our panelists. And this has been our mental health and competitive space panel. And once again, thank you for coming.